New image are in tonight on the eruption of the Mauna Loa volcano in Hawaii. The world's largest and active volcano is now attracting a new rush of tourists after its latest eruptions. And Ischia, the little Italian island hit by a deadly landslide last weekend, is a victim of geography and weather, but also of illegal construction. Experts and politicians agree. And satellite images of the city of Mariupol taken in March 2022 and November 2022 show the numerous changes that have occurred since the Russian siege of the city in March 2022 and the extensive damage that was caused by weeks of airstrikes and artillery bombardments. And later, our entertainment correspondent MJ Racadio in his exclusive interview with filmmaker Chris Suriano. Suriano is into movies that make strong political statement in hopes of creating social change. And his latest effort is titled Zeus. And as mentioned, there are new images that are in tonight on the eruption of the Mauna Loa volcano in Hawaii. The world's largest and active volcano is attracting a new rush of tourists after its latest eruptions. Take a look. So far, this spectacular display is not threatening any populated areas. Now that's good, but the governor has declared an emergency. Also, lava from the most active volcano is threatening to cut off a main highway on Hawaii's Big Island. Scientists say two new lava flows formed yesterday and managed to cross a private road, cutting off power and access to the Mauna Loa Observatory facility. Experts are keeping a close eye on the lava's movement, according to the agency, warning it. And volcanoes can be unpredictable, and these calculations, it said, could change. The other fissure still producing lava is sending it northeast, while plumes of volcanic gas were lofting high into the air and Pele's hair was falling to earth. Pele's hair is fine strands of volcanic glass formed when lava skins cool quickly into the air. The strands can be very sharp and pose potential danger to skin and eyes. Now, there are growing health concerns as well as the volcano spews ash and acidic gases into the air. The volcano began erupting on Sunday for the first time in almost 40 years. Pressure has been building at Mauna Loa for years, but it has not erupted since 1984. Fountains of lava as high as 200 feet have been observed this week, lighting up the night sky in a spectacle that could be seen from Kona, a town 45 miles away. The largest volcano on Earth by volume, Mauna Loa, whose name means long mountain, is larger than the rest of the Hawaiian Islands combined. The volcano's submarine flanks stretch for miles to an ocean floor that is in turn depressed by Mauna Loa's great mass, making its summit some 11 miles above its base, according to the USGS. One of 6 active volcanoes on the Hawaiian Islands, Mauna Loa has erupted 33 times since 1843, and its most recent eruption in 1984 lasted 22 days. Kilauea, a volcano on the southeastern flank of Mauna Loa, erupted almost continuously between 1993 and 2019, and a minor eruption there has been ongoing for months now. In other news, Ischia, the little Italian island hit by a deadly landslide last weekend, is a victim of geography and weather, but also of illegal construction, according to experts and politicians. 11 people died and 1 woman remains missing after a wave of mud and debris swept through the small town of Casamisciola Terme, following heavy rains across the Lush island off the coast of Naples. Take a look.
Abitazioni che sono state travolte dal fango, vedete anche qui al mare sono dei massi giganteschi che sono stati trasportati dalla frana, dalla collina, quindi questa è la situazione.
But WWF Italia, the environmental organization, said it was a predictable tragedy with specific causes and responsibilities. It blamed the repeated and irresponsible management of the island's territory, which, with the acceleration of the effects of climate change underway, has now become a bomb primed and ready to explode. Geologists have warned bad weather risks causing further landslides on parts of the island, which sits near Capri and is thronged with tourists in the summer. Experts said last week's disaster was caused by a fatal mix of deforestation, overdevelopment, and a lack of mitigation strategies. And this just in, a 5.7 magnitude earthquake hit Indonesia's main island of Java. The United States Geological Survey said less than 2 weeks after another quake in the same province killed more than 330 people. The quake struck on land at a depth of 112.5 kilometers, and the epicenter was located 18 kilometers southeast of the West Java city of Banjar. There were no immediate reports of casualties or major damage. The country's Meteorological Agency gave a higher magnitude of 6.4 for the quake, which also shook buildings in the capital Jakarta, according to an AFP journalist. But there was no threat of tsunami. Indonesia experiences frequent seismic and volcanic activity due to its position on the Pacific Ring of Fire, where tectonic plates collide. Last month, a shallow 5.6 magnitude tremor hit the town of Shenzhou in West Java, killing 331 people, injuring thousands and leaving tens of thousands homeless after it collapsed buildings and triggered landslides. And take a look, fire brigades are working on flooded roads in the outskirts of Florianopolis, Santa Catarina state, after heavy rains caused flooding and landslides there. The heavy rains that have been affecting several regions of Brazil for days caused two new deaths in the state of Santa Catarina, which is south, and left more than 4,000 people displaced in Bahia, which is in the northeast. The neighboring state of Santa Catarina has declared a state of emergency. Search and rescue operations are continuing. Rescue teams are using search dogs and drones with thermal cameras to locate possible survivors. Poor weather conditions at the remote location have complicated search efforts. As of December 1, teams working at the site had removed 7,000 cubic meters of mud and debris. And take a look at these images of fire burning the vegetation of a hill in Copacabana, Rio de Janeiro. This footage is showing the fire burning near buildings in Copacabana on Friday evening. Globo reported a local resident that said the fire was started when fireworks were lit after Cameroon scored to beat Brazil in the FIFA World Cup on Friday night. And we'll bring you more updates as developments come in. Communities in southern parts of Ethiopia are suffering from a devastating drought following 4 consecutive failed rainy seasons since late 2020, entering a 5th failed season from October to December. FAO's Emergency Director Ryan Paulson visited the drought-affected region to better understand the extent and impact of the drought. Take a look.
When there is drought, it doesn't mean there's no rain. It can come late, it can be badly distributed. But with the right types of inputs and technical support and local engagement, we can make a meaningful change. This is much better than just handing out food assistance. This is vulnerable families being able to produce for themselves, and the results are really incredible. So impressive is that the wheat that's growing here behind, it's possible to grow even in challenging circumstances. This farming family told us how they've lost half of their cows, they've lost the majority of their sheep. They're having to shift to cultivation, but it's working. Even though the rains came late, we were able to provide high-quality seeds, fertilizer, and some cash support to get the family through the worst period of the lean season. And this wheat is in fantastic condition. This is a historic drought. We need better emergency response, and we need to focus on resilience immediately. The resilience work can't wait. FAO and partners are implementing this. It's what the authorities and communities, all of them, are asking for.
The situation will likely continue to drive high humanitarian needs in the coming months and well into next year. Accordingly, the humanitarian needs have exponentially increased in the last few months, exacerbating the complexity of the humanitarian crisis and associated response. According to the FAO, the prolonged drought and conflict have triggered significant displacement and may likely increase over the next few months across communities with eroded livelihoods and in search of food, pasture, and water. In other news, Britain's Prince William met today in Boston with U.S. President Joe Biden after spending time on a landmark honoring the memory of another U.S. president. Take a look. The Prince and the President meeting for the first time after the Queen's funeral, as the heir to Britain's throne strode up outside the John F. Kennedy Library and Museum without an overcoat. President Biden remarked that it was freezing. Prince William chuckled and later could be heard informing the president that, quote, "When we got in Wednesday, it was pouring with rain." Strolling a short distance together along the edge of the Boston Harbor outside the library, President Biden jokingly asked if they were going to jump in, and Prince William suggested a quick swim. Then they entered the JFK Library complex to finish off the encounter in presumably more comfort. Now, Prince William is now first in line to the throne. Prince William and Princess Catherine visited Pierce Park in Boston Harbor to learn about climate change challenges Boston faces. Take a look at some reactions.
You know, it's just surreal to have them in our hometown and somewhere where we met and grew up. It's just so nice to see them locally, especially for such a great cause, too.
Yeah, exactly. It's nice that they come through. I mean, they've been to so many places, and it's nice to see them someplace that's familiar to us. And for the city of Boston to have a great opportunity to show off some of the stuff they're doing. So it's very exciting.
It's a moment in history. Not just a moment in time, but it's a moment in history. Something that I'll never forget. So I want to be part of it.
Excited. I mean, I know that they're here talking about climate change, doing all that work for it. And, you know, East Boston, we're surrounded by water. We're part of the city, but we look at it from afar, and the water is always right at our doorstep. So we're just really grateful that they're bringing some attention to it. And we can't wait to hear what they have to say. And like Kathleen said, hopefully get a wave and
we love
share
this
the
part.
excitement.
I think it's great for them to come visit and to go to all the local spots. I know they went to the Celtics last night and touring all the great spots in Boston today. So I'm super excited that they're coming to Pierce Park.
Now, earlier, Prince William also met with American royalty at the JFK Library, Caroline Kennedy and her children. The beginning of the visit, which comes after racism claims from William's brother Harry and mixed-race sister-in-law Meghan, was, however, overshadowed by the resignation and apology of 83-year-old Susan Hussey, one of William's 6 godmothers. It is also their first trip stateside since Harry and Meghan sensationally quit the royal family in early 2020. No meeting has been announced between the estranged brothers. The visit culminates on Friday evening with a star-studded ceremony for William's Earthshot Prize initiative to tackle climate change. The award ceremony, described by royal insiders as William's Super Bowl moment, is now in its second year and rewards 5 innovators with £1 million each, or $1.2 million. A host of stars were at the Boston's MGM Music Hall, including singers Billie Eilish and Annie Lennox, sisters Chloe X. Halle, and actor Rami Malek. British naturalist and television presenter David Attenborough and actress Kate Blanchett were also among the judges. Winners included a female-founded startup providing cleaner burning stoves to women in Kenya and a British company that crafts biodegradable packaging from marine plants. In tonight's other news, the United States unveiled the B21 Raider, a high-tech stealth bomber that can carry nuclear and conventional weapons and is designed to be able to fly without a crew on board. The B21 was unveiled during a ceremony at the Northrop Grumman's Air Force Plant 42 in Palmdale, California, with a speech by U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin. Take a look.
The B21 Raider is the first strategic bomber in more than 3 decades. It is a testament to America's enduring advantages in ingenuity and innovation. 50 years of advances in low observable technology have gone into this aircraft. And even the most sophisticated air defense systems will struggle to detect the B-21 in the sky. B-21 is carefully designed to be the most maintainable bomber ever built.
Like the F-22 and the F-35 warplanes, the B-21 features stealth technology, which minimizes an aircraft's signature through both its shape and the materials it is constructed from, making it harder for adversaries to detect. Not mentioned during the ceremony was the plane's potential for uncrewed flight. U.S. Air Force spokesperson Ann Stefanik told AFP the aircraft is provisioned for the possibility, but there has been no decision to fly without a crew. Northrop Grumman said 6 of the planes are currently in different stages of assembly and testing at its facility in Palmdale. The bomber will be a key part of the U.S. nuclear triad, which consists of weapons that can be launched from land, air, and sea. In other news, the Myanmar junta handed out at least 7 more death sentences this week, taking the tally of those on death row to 139, according to the United Nations. At least 7 male university students were sentenced to death by a military court behind closed doors on Wednesday, according to UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Volker Turk in a statement. By resorting to use death sentences as a political tool to crush opposition, the military confirms its disdain for the efforts by ASEAN and the international community at large to end violence and create the conditions for a political dialogue to lead Myanmar out of a human rights crisis created by the military. Local media reports said the Yangon-based university students were arrested in April and accused of involvement in a bank shooting. The latest death sentences followed July's executions of 4 prisoners that included former lawmaker Pyo Zayataw and democracy activist Kyaw Min Yu, better known as Jimmy. It was the first use of the death penalty by the Myanmar state in around 30 years and sparked worldwide condemnation. Scores of Myanmar social media users took to Facebook and Twitter to protest against the death penalties under hashtags such as Stop Execute Our Students. And a disturbing news story involving rapper Ye, or popularly known as Kanye West. He once again made anti-Semitic comments and posted a picture that appeared to show a swastika interlaced with a Star of David. Take a look. Mr. Elon Musk now suspending his Twitter account for incitement to violence. Musk said, "I tried my best, and despite that, he again violated our rule against incitement to violence. Account will be suspended." Now, the post came hours after an interview with conspiracy theorist Alex Jones, in which West sparked outrage by declaring his love of Nazis and admiration for Adolf Hitler. West had also shared a picture of a shirtless Musk getting sprayed with water, captioned, "Let's always remember this as my final tweet." Musk, who previously called himself a free speech absolutist, has repeatedly said he believes that all content permitted by law should be allowed on Twitter and sought to remake the social media organization after he took control in October. The U.S. Congress averting a rail strike that could have crippled the American economy. President Joe Biden signed into law a rare intervention by Congress, forcing freight rail unions to accept a salary deal, avoiding a possibly devastating strike. Take a look.
The bill I'm about to sign ends a difficult rail dispute and helps our nation avoid what, without a doubt, would have been an economic catastrophe at a very bad time in the calendar. Our nation's rail system is literally the backbone of our supply chain, as you all well know, and so much of what we rely on is delivered on our rail, from clean water to food and gas and every other good. Rail shutdown would have devastated our economy. Without freight rail, many of the U.S. industries would literally shut down. In the event of a shutdown, my economic advisors report that as many as 765,000 Americans Many of them union members themselves would have been put out of work for the first time, and within the first 2 weeks of the strike alone. At the same time, we ensured workers are going to get a historic 24% wage increase over the next 5 years, improved working conditions, and peace of mind around their health care.
The House easily passed the bill, and on Thursday, the Senate, where usually Biden's bills are lucky to scrape through with the one-vote Democratic majority, passed it 80-15. President Biden said he had no choice but to act quickly in the face of what the White House warns would have been a crippling strike right when the U.S. economy is showing signs of stabilizing in the wake of the COVID pandemic. Now to the latest in the war in Ukraine. Rescuers and residents are clearing debris after a strike in the village of Klugno, Bashkir-Ivka, near the city of Chugwiv in Kharkiv region. Let's take a look.
Вибух був на початку 12-ї. Був прильот, характер вибухонебезпечного предмету чи ракети, поки невідомо, буде проводити слідчі дії.
Now, Russia said it had seized East Ukrainian settlements near the embattled town of Bakhmut that Moscow has been trying to capture since this summer. And later on Wednesday, the army announced it also seized Andrivka, also to the south. In another part of the Donetsk region, this time near the city of Avdiivka, on the front line since 2014, Russians seized a small settlement of Vodyen. Once known for its vineyards and cavernous salt mines, Bakhmut has been dubbed the meat grinder due to the brutal trench warfare, artillery duels, and frontal assaults around the city. Russian mercenaries, prison conscripts, and newly mobilized troops are believed to be fighting for Moscow in the area. The Ukrainian presidency said Wednesday that gas, electricity, and communications were cut off in the city due to shelling. And blackouts in Lviv don't bring everyday life to a halt. Shops and bars continue serving even as the lights go out. Take a look.
Місто Львів на вулиці Куліша уже 4-й день пропадає світло. Потрошки пристосовуємося до роботи. Використовуємо павербанки, різні LED-лампи і по чуть-чуть рухаємося. Далі тільки краще. Йдемо до перемоги, люди заходять, купляють навіть і коли немає світла. Бо в нас все якісна, хороша техніка. Допомагаємо собі само собою фонариками. Коли не працює термінал, оплачуємо на карточку, просто перевод на карточку йде і виписуємо чек вручну.
Now, this is just as well with Lviv experiencing widespread blackouts caused by systemic and targeted Russian attacks, which have brought Ukraine's energy infrastructure to its knees. Russian President Vladimir Putin told German counterpart Olaf Scholz on Friday that Moscow's attacks on Ukraine's infrastructure were inevitable and accused the West of pursuing destructive policies. Moscow has in recent weeks struck Ukraine's energy grids, leaving millions in the cold and dark as winter approaches. President Putin said that political and financial support from the Ukraine's Western allies leads to the fact that Kiev completely rejects the idea of any negotiations. Now, the G7 and the EU agreed on a $60 per barrel on price cap on Russian oil in an attempt to deny the Kremlin of war resources. As President Putin said, more strikes on Ukrainian infrastructure were inevitable. Take a look. The price cap, previously negotiated on a political level between the G7 group of wealthy democracies and the European Union, will come into effect with an EU embargo on Russian crude oil from Monday. The embargo will prevent shipments of Russian crude by tanker vessel to the EU, which account for 2/3 of imports, potentially depriving Russia's war chest of billions of euros. Ukraine's presidency on Saturday said a $60 price cap on Russian oil agreed by the EU, G7, and Australia will destroy Russia's economy. The price cap is designed to make it harder to bypass the sanctions by selling beyond the EU. China and India, for example, will still be able to import Russian oil, but under the proposed plan, European insurers would be banned from covering tankers that carry oil trading at prices above the $60 ceiling. Under the European plan, which will be coordinated with the US, the G7, and other Western allies, if the market price of Russian oil falls below $60, then the cap will be cut until it is 5% lower than the market. And take a look. These are satellite images of the city of Mariupol taken in March 2022 and November 2022, showing the numerous changes that have occurred since the Russian siege of the city in March 2022 and the extensive damage that was caused by weeks of airstrikes and artillery bombardments. Across the city, dozens of high-rise apartment buildings that had been destroyed or heavily damaged during March are now being demolished, and large stockpiles of construction supplies are seen near several of the shopping centers in western Mariupol and elsewhere. A new Russian military compound has been built in the north center of the city. The city's main cemetery on the western side of the city has had a significant expansion of the number of graves. And in tonight's other news, the military parade was recently held in Bucharest to celebrate Romania's National Day. At the scene is Kit Wong.
Today, December 1st, Romania celebrates its Great Union Day. Great Union Day, also called Unification Day or National Holiday, is celebrated here in Bucharest, Romania every 1st of December. Declaration of Unification happened in Alba Iulia on this day in 1918. Romania's National Day has moved around a few times over the years. Before 1918, National Day was observed on May 10th. And during the communist rule, the National Day was August 23rd. Following the end of communist rule in 1990, December 1st was made the National Day. Romania's Great Union Day, or Ziua Marii Unirii, commemorates the unification of Transylvania, Balad, Crișana, and Maramureș with Romanian Kingdom on this day in 1918. Romanian flag colors trace back to the Ottoman principalities of Moldavia and Wallachia that joined to form Romania in 1858. Great Union Day is marked by a large military parade here in the capital, Bucharest.
So this is the National Day of Romania. We have this parade each year on the 1st of December. A lot of Romanians are gathering here, thousands of Romanians. You could see that maybe nobody could see the event because it was so crowded. We could see a parade of the army, the military, and also the internal forces like the police, the fire brigade, and so on. And it's a special event for all of the Romanians. You can see that the weather is not so great, but they are withstanding this weather to see the parade.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
From Bucharest, Romania, this is Kit Wong reporting for Eagle News, and we live in extraordinary times.
Thanks, Kit. And with that, we take a short break and we'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. May lalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
Anong gagawin namin? At kanino ka mo?
Kung ayaw mo yun, pwede ka rin namang umalis sa Hancock Hospital.
Ang mga dating magkakampi.
Pagbabayaran mo lahat ng ginawa mo!
Hihiwalayan ka niya at iiwanang wala ang lahat. O pagbabayaran mo si Jun sa'yo sa mga kasalanan niya sa'yo. Ang siyang mag-aaway-away. Ano ang pakiramdam na naisahan ka ni Airy? Sabay kayong babagsak ni Airy. Fatal Promise.
Panalo tayo pag together, walang talo pag together, let's stand together. Sa Net 25.
Gusto ko munang tawagan ng abogado ko. Sino? Romulo Villa Garcia? Umanap ka ng bago. Nahuli na rin namin siya.
Dumating na ang araw ng hustisya.
Boss, marami akong pera. Tulungan mo lang ako na mabawi ang anak ko.
Ngunit mabigat nga ba ang kapalit?
Hindi ko mapapatawad ang sarili ko pag nawala siya.
Abangan sa huling linggo ng Mi Esperanza.
Panalo tayo pag together, walang talo pag together, let's stand together. Sa Net 25.
Pinaghihinalaang ang sospek ay may kasabwat na insider sa loob ng kumpanya.
Kilala mo ang lalaking ito?
Habang nabibigyang liwanag ang mga sekreto.
Paano na? Anong gagawin ko? Ayokong malagay kayong lahat sa peligro.
Meron nga bang malalagay sa peligro?
Mary!
Two sisters.
Panalo tayo pag together, walang talo pag together, let's stand together. Sa Net 25. La 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 la.
Ang sabi nila, maliit daw ang mundo.
Nasaan siya?
Nandun siya.
Hindi ko naman siya makita eh.
Ngunit, bakit palagi na lang hindi sila magkita?
Hello? Nasaan ka na?
Until one day, sa isang unexpected but unforgettable moment, abangan sila on Net 25.
Panalo tayo pag together, walang talo pag together, let's stand together. Sa Net 25.
Welcome back. A new warning from the CDC as flu cases surge across the United States, with hospitalizations doubling over Thanksgiving week and new concern going into the holiday season. It is the latest viral surge in America, pushing an already strained hospital system to its breaking point. Take a look.
Troubling early data show that not enough people have received their flu vaccine this year. I strongly encourage everyone 6 months and older to get their flu vaccine as soon as possible.
Flu activity is high nationally, and flu hospitalization rates are higher than they've been at this time of year in the past decade, with the highest rates in people 65 years and older, followed by children younger than 5 years old. The good news is that this year's flu vaccines so far are well matched to the viruses that are causing illness. Everyone 6 months and older should get a flu vaccine. So far, vaccine coverage this year is lower in some groups than it has been in past seasons, meaning that too many people remain unprotected while flu activity continues to rise. There's still time to get vaccinated to protect yourself from flu. Flu vaccines are safe and can keep you from getting sick, being hospitalized, or dying from flu.
On Friday, the CDC reported that flu is spreading at high levels in 45 states, even in southern states and others where the virus has been spreading since October. The CDC also warned that flu vaccination rates among pregnant people who are at especially high risk of severe complication from the virus is down 12% so far this season compared to last year's season. Experts are now worried infections will increase nationwide following the Thanksgiving week and going into the holiday season. And so far this season, nearly 9 million Americans have fallen ill with the flu. Approximately 4,500 have died, according to CDC estimates. Older adults are most at risk, but flu has killed 14 children since October. The World Health Organization has cheered China's loosening of its zero-COVID policy. President Xi Jinping suggested the spread of the less lethal Omicron strain might allow China to pull back from its hardline strategy of lockdowns and mass testing. Take a look.
We're pleased to learn that the Chinese authorities are adjusting their current strategies and really trying to calibrate now the control measures that they need for this virus against with the lives, the livelihoods, and the human rights of people in communities who've, like all over the world, everyone has suffered. We've all had to deal with restrictions of movement. We've all had to deal with having our lives changed. So there are natural frustrations, there are natural issues with that. And it's really important that governments listen to their people when the people are in pain, and that we really want to see that adjustment happen and accelerate, but recognise that each country has to deal with an infectious disease. We hope this progresses and we see that coherent, calibrated strategy emerge that balances the control of the virus with the lives, the livelihoods and well-being and human rights of the people of China.
Discontent spilled onto the streets last weekend and expanded into calls for more political freedom in widespread demonstrations not seen in decades. Cities across China further unwound COVID restrictions on Friday, loosening testing and quarantine rules. As for COVID-19 vaccination in China, Dr. Ryan said the UN Health Agency was pleased to see that take-up rates were improving. The WHO has given its emergency use listing green light to 9 COVID vaccines and variations, including 3 produced by China, those of Sinovac, Sinopharm, and CanSinoBio. However, those 3 do not use mRNA technology as deployed in the Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna jabs. Dr. Ryan said mRNA vaccines produced very effective immunity against the virus, and some countries that did not use such jabs in their primary vaccination course were now using them as boosters to enhance protection. In an effort to stop online abuse linked to the monkeypox outbreak, the WHO on Monday urged the adoption of an alternative name, Mpox. Take a look.
Earlier this week, WHO announced that we will begin using Mpox as a synonym for monkeypox. Both names will be used for 1 year while the name monkeypox is phased out. Meanwhile, the global mpox outbreak continues to decline, with 620 cases reported last week. More than 90% of less than the peak in August. Most cases are being reported from Latin America.
The World Health Organization said that it was asked to decide on a new name after cases of the virus were reported in countries where it's not endemic, prompting racist and stigmatizing language. The WHO held consultations with health experts, countries, and members of the public before announcing the move. To mitigate concerns that the name change might spread confusion in the midst of a global outbreak, the UN Health Agency said that mpox will only replace monkeypox once and for all in a year's time. Latest data indicates just over 81,000 confirmed cases of mpox worldwide, including 55 deaths. 110 countries have reported cases since January 1 across all 6 WHO regions. In other news, U.S. rock band Guns N' Roses has sued a company that runs an online gun store named Texas Guns N' Roses, charging in Fed court that the business appropriated its name unjustly. In a lawsuit filed in Los Angeles, attorneys for the band said a corporation that runs the online shop was conning consumers into believing the business had something to do with the rock band. Guns N' Roses quite reasonably does not want to be associated with defendant, a firearms and weapons retailer, according to the lawsuit filed on Thursday. Additionally, the band claimed the gun dealer espouses political views related to the regulation and control of firearms and weapons on the website that may be polarizing to many U.S. consumers. The lawsuit identified Jersey Village Florist, LLC, as the owner and operator of Texas Guns N' Roses, which it said sells firearms and ammunition scopes, body armor, and metal safes, among other items. In other news, customs officers at the Ninoy Aquino International Airport have foiled a recent attempt to smuggle wildlife after intercepting 23 tarantulas that were declared as snacks and other food items. In a statement on Friday, BOC NAIA District Collector Carmelita Talusan said the parcel that arrived from Hanoi, Vietnam, which was consigned to a claimant in Makati City, was seized at the Central Mail Exchange Center in Pasay City on November 21st. The spiders were concealed in plastic containers labeled as potato chips and were discovered upon examination. All 23 tarantulas were immediately turned over to the Department of Environment and Natural Resources for monitoring and safekeeping. And China's Shenzhou 15 spacecraft carrying 3 astronauts reached the Tiangong space station, completing the country's first ever crew handover in orbit. Take a look. Now, the trio blasted off aboard a Long March 2F rocket at 11:08 p.m. from the Jiquan Launch Center in northwestern China's Gobi Desert, according to Xinhua, citing the China Manned Space Administration, or CMSA. The vessel, carrying veteran Fei Junlong and first-time astronauts Deng Qingming and Zhang Lu, successfully docked with the station early on Wednesday, according to the agency. And according to Xinhua, the Tiangong Space Station is the crown jewel of Beijing's ambitious space program, which has landed robotic rovers on Mars and the Moon and made the country the third to put humans in orbit as it looks to catch up with the U.S. and Russia. Tiangong's final module successfully docked with the core structure earlier this month, and a key step in its completion by year's end. China has been excluded from the International Space Station since 2011, when the U.S. banned NASA from engaging with the country. Once completed, meanwhile, the Tiangong Space Station is expected to have a mass of 90 tons, around a quarter of the ISS, or similar in size to the Soviet-built MIR station that orbited Earth from the 1980s until 2001. Tiangong, which means Heavenly Palace, will operate for around a decade and host a variety of experiments in near-zero gravity. Next year, Beijing plans to launch the Juntian Space Telescope with a field of view 300 150 times that of NASA's Hubble Space Telescope. And finally, here's our entertainment correspondent, MJ Racario, in his exclusive interview with Phil-Am filmmaker Chris Suriano. Suriano is into movies that make strong political statement in hopes of creating social change. His latest effort is titled Zeus. MJ Racario talks to Chris Suriano. Take a look.
Legendary boxing superstar Manny Pacquiao helped Hollywood film actor director Chris Suriano making his directorial debut with his film Almighty Zeus. Take a look.
How was it like working with legendary Manny Pacquiao?
Oh, it was great. You know, it was like it was like talking to my cousin or a friend, because to see a very successful Filipino out there and go to his house in LA, the smell of the food, it's like my house. I'm there, I'm enjoying, and getting greeted and hearing Tagalog. You never really see that. When I think rich and successful, you don't think Tagalog or anything. You just think business people, this.
Yes, so no, you said you talk about during pandemic and there's like Asian hate and all of that. So that's the time that you conceptualize Almighty Zeus?
Yes, I wrote it in several days, less than a week, and it really I didn't know what was going to happen. It was my first time actually creating a full end-to-end story. You just keep going, and if no one's going to stop you, you'll go until you finish, right? And I was able to finish that, and but I need to find the right people to portray these characters. And it was funny meeting these people, because some of these actors were like, well, how many movies have you directed before? And I'm like, 0. I'm like, oh, okay, and you want me in your movie? I said, yes. And it's like, well, okay. So there's always awkward pauses. And for me, a good example is I didn't know how I was going to make this film, Almighty Zeus, but I found a lot of filmmakers and people that were unemployed at the time because of the pandemic. And I said, let's work together, because if we don't do something in this pandemic, with nothing at the end of it.
What's going on in your life, Anak?
You want to know why they call him Sniper? Because when he shoot, he don't miss, home.
Just training for my next fight. You're still boxing? You're too old for that, Zeus. That's just a dream.
What's this? Prize money minus fees.
How much was the fees? Well, you need to wake up. You're not getting any younger.
You sure you want to fight this guy?
I'm ready. I want you to fly out there tomorrow and set up the fight.
Sounds like we're going to war.
Only 1 in a million can get there. So tell me, Zeus, are you 1 in a million?
Know where you at?
Looks like you need some hand sanitizer.
Let's get out of here, man.
Huh? What are you messing with an old man for? What, you want some too? What do you ever do to you? This.
That is it for our entertainment news. MJ Racario here. Always tune in to Net 25 because we live in an extraordinary times.
Thanks, MJ. As always, I'll end the week on a thoughtful note. Our ability to look back and smile at our past is proof that God's plan is to keep us moving forward. This has been Eagle News International. I'm Alma Angeles. Stay alert, stay informed, because we live in extraordinary times. Good night.